Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you everyone for joining the first webinar of 2021, where we'll be discussing output files and reports on SIS. Both myself, Samuel Diana Brown, and my colleague Jonina Osmani will be your presenters today. As we start, a couple of legal reminders. Participants are reminded that live streaming of this webinar by participants to parties not in attendance is not permitted, except as indicated by and with the express permission and knowledge of IATA. Unauthorized recording of the meeting is also prohibited. IATA will record the webinar and share the link afterwards to the members of this group and will be posted on the SIS website. Taking a look at our agenda for today, we are going to begin our discussion with the SIS output files, moving on to the SIS reports, and we are going to conclude with some Q&A. As a reminder, there is a question box available, and during the presentation, you may put any questions in that question box, and we'll try our best to answer them at the end of the webinar. Introducing a new format we'll be using in this webinar and in webinars going forward. We'll be displaying these symbols on the right side of the slides, clarifying the billing category and the file format that the service is available on. So here we can see passenger, cargo, miscellaneous UTP, PDF, Excel, and CSV. So keep an eye on this throughout the webinar. So as we begin, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Nina to start.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much for starting the webinar. And now let's start with the webinar and with the output files. Here we have the SIS output files, and now we will go and see them one by one. The SIS output files are generated by SIS, and these are files that contain useful data and files including the summary of invoices, packages of invoices, reports, and processing files that you can use in your systems for automation purposes. Some of the files are enabled and some files are generated automatically, and we are going to cover each of them during this session. SIS offers you several types and formats that you can choose to receive and subsequently import to your systems for automation. And additionally, SIS provides you with the flexibility to choose the output files according to your business needs from your SIS member profiles for each billing category. The specification per each billing category are indicated in the ISPG chapters 3.13 for PACS, ISPG chapter 4.6 for cargo, chapter 5.12 for miscellaneous, and finally chapter 6.5 for UATP. Additionally, we will also show you how to configure these files in your system in SIS, being a billed entity or as a billing entity. And finally, we will explain in depth the output files types that are available in SIS during the next slides of this webinar. Moving forward, this is a drop-down menu that you see in SIS visible to you, where you will see the list of all output files that we have in SIS. You can go ahead and check it in SIS General File Management download file. Please note that the files will be stored in SIS for a limited period of time, and after which they are purged and cannot be regenerated. So we kindly suggest you to store them in your external systems for a better control of your past invoices and your data in general. On the other side, you might also consider activating the legal archiving that we offer in SIS. This way you can have them in stored, and we can help you for that. The output files are offered for each billing categories and in different formats that we will go one by one later. Per each billing category, as I said, these output files can be enabled in your SIS member profile. So the configuration of these files can be done by going to SIS, Profile and User Management, and Manage Member Profile. SIS offers you a flexible configuration that you might want to choose by billing category, and also, depending on the setup, SIS will generate the required files on daily basis or at the end of every billing period, as indicated in the SIS calendar that my colleague Sam will cover for you later. Additionally, I would like to highlight and remind you here that you can use IINet to automate the reception of your SIS output files for integration with your systems. It is important to note that when you activate the output files, when you enable them in the configuration that I just showed you now in the SIS member profile, you might want to know that these files will not have a retroactive effect. This will mean that when you choose to activate, you will only receive the output files for future periods. And as you can see here, this is where you activate them for passenger. As we said, you can activate them per each billing category. So this is the tab passenger. Here is where you can enable the output files. For cargo, it will be in the cargo tab, and this is where you might want to be enabled to enable the output files. And miscellaneous, this is where you see in SIS profile and user management, manage member profile, the output files. Now that we have shown you how to enable them in your system, we will go forward and explain you the SIS payable output files, which are the files that include all your payable invoices in flat file based structure, ISDEC, or in ISXML format. These are the two formats that SIS offers to you. The format of the output files is based on your member profile selection, meaning that regardless of the format of the input file used by the billing party, you can choose one of these formats as a billed entity. There is one output file per billing category and billing period generated 2 days after period closure. And as I said before, we will see the calendar later. Additionally, I would like to also remind you that the file specifications and sample files are provided in the ISIDEC and ISXML record structure documents that you will see available in the complete ISPG package on the SIS website. So since we explained the ISXML and ISIDEC output files, as you see here, as indicated in this flowchart, that you can also find in the ISPG, and as I mentioned before, the format of the output files is based on your member profile selection, so this will be regardless of the format of the input file used by the billing party. Now that we have explained the two formats, ISXML and ISIDEC, for the SIS payable output files, we will go in more depth and show you the one by one, the naming convention of each of these file formats. So for the SIS payable output files, in the category of ISXML output file, the naming convention, as you see here, is compressed 21 characters and uncompressed 21, where in the position 1 you have a per billing category. So this might be depending on the billing category: passenger, cargo, or miscellaneous. Position 7 to 9 will be the billed entity's numeric code. So for example, as I'm showing in this slide, 1 to 3, the member code. And positions 10 to 17 will be the billing month and period represented as year, month, period. For example, period 4 of December 2020 would be 2020 1204. Now, as you can see here, this is an example of the of your XML file. This is the naming convention, and this is how your XML output file would look like internally. And as said before, it can be enabled for each billing category: passenger, cargo, miscellaneous, and UATP. On the other side, we have the other format, which is the ISIDEC output file for your SIS payable output files. And the naming convention is more or less the same as we saw for the ISXML, compressed 22 and uncompressed 22 characters. The position 1 is the same for your passenger or cargo. Please note that the IDEC is offered for these two billing categories, passenger and cargo, and it's not offered for miscellaneous. Positions 8 to 8 to 10 will be the billed entity, and positions 11 to 18 will be billing month and period represented as year, month, period, as we saw in the previous format, and here it's going to be the same. So period 4 of December 2020. Now that we have covered the two formats of your output files, we will go to the SIS output files, the offline archive outputs. This moving forward to the offline archive outputs, I would like to say that you will also see these named as OARs in many of our documents. These are packages of files known as OAR that you can enable in the member profile and will contain your payable and receivable invoices in PDF, together with the supporting documents, memo details, and the digital signature files, and they will be received for each billing period. So as you see here, this is where you can enable them in SIS in offline archive outputs per billing category. And as you see on the right side of this slide, they are offered for all the billing categories, and you might want to enable the PDF, the listing, supporting documents, the rejection billing credit memo, and the digital signature files. Moving forward, we would like to explain you the naming convention of these OAR files. And as you can see here, this is how the naming convention of these files look like. And you have A here means it will be the code R when the recipient member receives the receivable data, or P when a recipient member receives the payable data. So this way you can distinguish between the two files, receivables or payables. And the naming convention is quite the same as the other ones that we saw before. So the rest of it, it's the three numeric code, the member's recipient code, and the billing month and period. This is how the OER files look like inside. As you can see, the naming convention for your payable, and then the e-invoice and listing. It is important to know that the OER files can be also be imported in the system. So you can have these files for a better control of your invoices. Now we move forward to the miscellaneous specific output files, which are in addition to the standard output files that we saw so far. We have specific to the miscellaneous category as the billing invoices submitted on behalf of the member and the daily ISXML file for receivable IS Web invoices. So these are the two options that you have under the miscellaneous tab in SIS. So billing invoices submitted on behalf of the member and daily ISXML files for receivable IS Web invoices. If you choose to enable these two options, we will go and explain them one by one. The first one is the miscellaneous UATP on behalf of. If enabled, SIS will create an XML file containing the details of the invoices submitted by third parties on behalf of SIS members. For example, invoices raised by IATA for call day adjustments, invoices submitted by ATCAM for UATP claims, etc. SIS provides the billing entity with the option to generate an ISXML output file at the end of each billing period. This file can be used to carry out account adjustments within the receivable system of the billing entity. And I would like to also highlight here that the general purpose of this file is for you to have records of the invoices that are issued on your behalf so that you can import the XML files of these invoices into your systems. If you activate this, it will mean that you require a copy of the invoice file submitted on your behalf to SIS. And this helps you have a better control of the files uploaded on your behalf from other entities, as we mentioned before in this slide. On the other side, there is the miscellaneous UATP on behalf of ISXML files, and how the naming convention is shown for these files. So you have the compressed 25 characters and uncompressed 25 characters, again, where the position 1 is the billing category. They are offered, as you see here, for miscellaneous and UATP. Position 6 to 8 is the billing member's accounting code, and positions 9 to 16 is the billing month and period represented with year, month, and period. This is how this file looks like inside. You will see the XML file here in a screenshot prepared for you, and the naming convention that we just mentioned. Now that we have covered the on behalf of ISXML files, we will go to the miscellaneous daily ISXML files for receivable ISWeb invoices. If you enable this file, SIS will create a daily file in ISXML format, which includes all your miscellaneous receivable invoices that were created manually in ISWeb. You might want to choose to receive these daily files and upload them in your accounting systems. Additionally, the daily ISXML file for receivable ISWeb invoices can be downloaded from ISWeb or IINet. They can additionally be sent to your specific IINet ID, so you can choose to receive them in your main account and also in a specific location. We will go in detail for the specific IINet IDs in the following slides. Now we will move forward to the naming convention of the daily ISXML files that we just explained. This is how the naming convention is indicated. The difference here is, as you see, it's the same. It starts with the same, the positions 5 to 7, it's your billing member. But here we have date and time when the file was created. So as you can see here, the timestamp will be indicated in the name of the file. And this is how this file looks internally for you to get familiar with the name and how it looks. Now that we have covered these two files, the on behalf of and the daily ISXML, we will move forward to the miscellaneous daily outputs for bilateral payable invoices. So this means that for your miscellaneous, you can moreover choose to enable the daily delivery of miscellaneous bilateral invoices independent from the weekly processing calendar. In addition to the daily delivery, SIS participants can enable the daily ISXML output files and daily offline archive OAR that we saw before. The structure of the daily output files is the same as the weekly, and these files are only available, as we said before, and as you see in this slide, for miscellaneous payable bilateral invoices. I would like to also highlight here that invoices that are included in the daily files will not be included in the weekly output files to avoid duplication. As you see here, these are the two options that you can enable under your miscellaneous tab in the member profile in SIS. It is important also that you have them daily for faster processing and visibility of your invoices. And this also help you have a better cash flow prediction and also for your payment terms meeting purposes. You have the opportunity here to receive immediately your invoices instead of waiting for your weekly period closure. Moving forward, we will see how the miscellaneous daily outputs for bilateral payable invoices are named. So this is the naming convention. Please note here that the difference is that they start with the letter D, which stands for daily, and they will always start with M because they are offered only for the miscellaneous billing category. And this is how the daily MXMLT would look like, as you see in the screenshot that we have prepared for you, and the daily miscellaneous OAR, where you will receive a part from the invoice, also the listing and the supporting documents. So these are the same concepts as we looked before, except that these are daily files, and even the naming convention is similar, as you see, but here it's the daily that makes the difference. All these files are receivables in the weekly OAR, and these are only payables bilateral daily. So please note that you will receive these files for your miscellaneous daily outputs for bilateral payable invoices. Moving forward, as I said before, as I mentioned, we will now explain the default location ID that you might want to choose for miscellaneous payable files. The default location for your miscellaneous payable original invoices and credit notes indicates a default location for your miscellaneous payable original invoices and credit notes. This is a very important functionality that we introduced in the first SIS webinar for the past year 2020 that you can see in our website, and we will show later our new webinar tab that we have added in our website. And this functionality allows you to define a default location for miscellaneous payable original invoices and credit notes. This enhancement helps you define and specify a location ID for specific billing members in the miscellaneous tab of your member profile. which, as you can see here in this screenshot, is named billing member specific default location. In summary, to make it easier for you to understand this very important functionality, you can have an additional location and a specific one for a better control by customizing where you want to receive your files per billing member. So as you can see here, once you define your location ID in the member profile, you will be able to receive from SIS these types of files, these types of output files. So you will be able to receive all these four are offered for your specific IINet ID to those specific location IDs of your choice. This feature allows you to choose for which location ID you would like to receive separate output files and to which IINet account these files will be sent to. This is also for a better segregation of your files per location ID. Let's say that you want these files to be in a specific location ID and that location ID to control some specific files referring to that specific ID. Invoices and credit notes delivered in a location-specific output file will not be included in the non-location-specific output, whether in ISXML or OARs. As we said before, OARs stand for Offline Archive Output Files. Additionally, it is important to know here that even your user access can also be done per location. Therefore, you might want to have a person in charge in a specific location that will receive the specific files for that location ID. A person in charge that of your company that can receive these files in that location for a better control of your files per location ID. And as an example, you will see here a file that was sent to a specific location ID for which this file was generated, and you will see there highlighted in color, in purple color, the L13 ID, specific ID indicated in the file. Now that we have covered the miscellaneous specific location ID, we will go and explain you the miscellaneous payment status updates, which is a very important option that SIS offers to the members to activate it in your miscellaneous tab. And you will see here daily payment updates for receivable invoices and daily payment updates for payable invoices. These two options indicate if you require daily payment status update as per billed member. And the second one indicates if the member requires daily payment status update as per billing member. This feature helps you have a better control of your cash flow prediction for your payment terms meeting purposes. It helps also both parties to understand the status of an invoice once it is received and until payment. This is available to be used then by both as per billing member and as a billed member, and the statuses, so the payment statuses, are updated independently from each other. So we really suggest you to check this to enable this functionality for your daily miscellaneous payable and receivable payment status update output files. We will see here how this file can be downloaded once you have enabled it. So you want to go to SIS General File Management Download File, and you can choose the daily miscellaneous payable or receivable depending on which one. And as you see in the search results, it will appear. And this is how the file looks inside with the all invoices per the payment status for all the invoices. As you can see, we have a guidance document that we have uploaded in our website, the SIS functionality guidance document, and this refers to the CMP 692 miscellaneous payment status update. I invite you, once you have enabled, if you don't have this functionality enabled, to check also this document for more information. Additionally, we will explain this functionality also in a future webinar where we will go into details on the payment status updates. So also I invite you to stay tuned for that invitation. Moreover, we will move now to the UATP ATCAN CSV output files. These reports are useful for those of you who are processing UATP transactions to SIS. So you can use it for reconciliation purposes of all those UATP transactions that you have in SIS. This, as you can see here, is enabled by default for those participants who are using UATP, and it is applicable only to those participants. This is how the naming convention of this file looks like, and this is how the file inside the CSV file looks like when you receive it if you are a participant. Finally, we will go to the processed invoice CSV report. This is a report that is generated every period and includes all invoices submitted in a billing period. It is offered for all billing categories, as you can see here, passenger, cargo, miscellaneous, and UATP, and it is received in CSV format. As you see, this is the naming convention, and this is how the file, the CSV file, would look like when you download it from SIS. Now that we have explained all the output files, we will move on to the sanity validation reports for input files. It is important before explaining the validation reports for your input files to tell you that for each file sent to SIS, the system will generate a validation report. This means that you will have a validation report for each input file. These files can be retrieved from ISWeb and your IINet account, and you need to make sure to always check the validation report for all input files sent to SIS in order to make sure that everything is validated and processed successfully. You can use IINet to automate the reception of validation report. This will make it easier for you to have all these files in your systems. And you can also indicate in the input files the specific IINet account where the validation report should be sent to, so that you, as we said before, you send them to a specific IINet account for a better control in that location. Moving forward, this is where you can find the validation reports. So it's under SIS General File Management Download File, and it's Validation Sanity Check Reports for IS, IDEC, ISXML, and it is offered for all billing categories, passenger, cargo, miscellaneous, UATP, and it is a CSV file that would look like this, as you can see here in this slide. So when there is no error, you will receive only one CSV file, and it will say it will finish with /validation R1. When you have only R1, it means that there was no error with the file and it went successfully. However, if you receive a validation file with an R2, as shown in the second screenshot, this means that there was an error in your file and you need to check what that error was. When you open this validation file, you will see in the column new the error description. So in here, for example, in this example, it is an invalid billing period that it has been indicated in this file. So what needs to be done is to correct that billing period, rename, and upload the input file again. However, if there is any question on any error description that you are receiving, feel free to contact us via the customer portal. Now that we have covered the validation reports files that you receive in SIS, as we shown before in the first slide, the list of the output files, you will see that there are other output files that we didn't go into details. These are the complete contact data CSV file and the complete reference data CSV file, which were presented in the webinar, in the SIS webinar number 4, Contact and User Management. I invite you to check it and to see in details these files. Additionally, we will, in a future webinar in February, present to you the dispute output file to the billing member, the dispute output package, and the dispute review file. So I also invite you to stay tuned for our invitation for the upcoming dispute webinar. And now that we have covered all the output files, I will leave it to my colleague Sam to go forward with the reports. Thank you very much for attending this webinar.
Thank you very much, Nina, for your presentation on output files. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the second half of the webinar where we'll be discussing reports. The way the presentation will go on forward from here, we'll be going through the reports as found in the report tab in SIS to help you follow along. So as we begin, SIS reports. SIS reports are organized data that are generated either automatically or manually. These reports contain data that can support your operations, optimize decision making, highlight internal pain points, and provide checks on current and past invoices. These reports are generated via XLS, CSV, or PDF. As a reminder of what we saw in the beginning of the webinar, this is the new legend that we are following, the SIS webinar legend, where on the right side of the slide, you can see where this report is associated to, which billing category, whether it's passenger, cargo, miscellaneous, UTB, and which file generation it is available as, whether it's PDF, Excel, or CSV. So please notice that on the right side of the slide as we go forward. For the first discussion, we'll be talking about the processing dashboard and the first tab of the processing dashboard, the invoice status. Like many dashboards, this has a quick search and a detailed search. Quick search refers to the current period, while detailed can be specified to a range of time. In the dashboard, you can see invoices uploaded and their status. As you see in the screenshot in the bottom left, they can have colors such as green, yellow, and red. Yellow generically means it's a follow-up / pending. Green means the invoice is all good to go. And red is something that you must take action on. We recommend that you should always check the dashboard before closure so you can see what is missing. And also a note that the dashboard is for receivables only. A more detailed description of the color notation that we saw before. Here on the slide, you can see exactly what it means per column. While slightly different, they all kind of follow the same logic, green being successful, yellow pending, and red being point of action and or failed. To the next tab of the processing dashboard, we look at the billing file status. Here, this one, it's where the billing file status will be displayed. Here, the user can see the file and their status. Note, it does not follow the color logic as before. This, you'll see the written convention under file status column. And the last tab of the processing dashboard, we look at the document package status tab. Here, this is where you can see files in the processing dashboard. And again, this one follows the color logic as we saw before with the green, yellow, and red. Continuing on to the next report, we look at the SIS usage report and the IS web usage report. We've gone over this in a previous webinar, but as a refresher, here you're able to check the number of transactions submitted, and you can reconcile invoices for fees. For those who have questions on the pricing schedule and their usage of SIS, they can use this function to reference their own usage. The IS web usage report, the only difference between this and the other is invoices submitted via IS web transactions. It's only via IS web, and it also includes the username of the person who did said transactions or who used IS web, so this helps for audit purposes. Continuing on to the member and contact report. This was covered in a previous webinar, but as a reminder, on this report, you can choose whether it be member detailed or contact report. You can generate it for one or all members, and you can make this as descriptive as possible as you like. As we see in the bottom left, the two black rectangles, you can specify what fields you want to choose and how they're populated. So in this example, in the screenshot, I generated with the member prefix, designator, and commercial name, and you see on the screenshot on the red rectangle on the right, how it generated with the test airline. Continuing, we look at the SIS users report. Here, this report can be generated for all of your SIS members on your account, or sorry, all the users on your SIS member account. This report generates via email, so you'll receive an email and you click the link to download, and you have the choice to include permissions of all the users associated with this profile. Continuing, we look at one of the first major reports to discuss, and this is the SIS and Clearinghouse Calendar. The way you get here is on the Reports tab. You go down to the IS and CH Calendar report. When you choose to generate this report, you choose the year, you choose the calendar type, and under the calendar type, you can choose whether it's related to IS, ICH, ACH, or all three combined, and then you choose your own time zone. And obviously, we recommend to choose your own time zone so you do not get confused with any of the times. So the first calendar which we'll be discussing is the SIS processing calendar. As a note before we break these down, that the calendar is presented as a 24-hour clock. If you're part of a time zone where the time for one of these is presented as 0000, this is the beginning of that day, while something like 2300 will be the end of that day. So please keep note of that. So as we begin, we take a look at submission open. This is the day and time invoices can be submitted for that billing period. Continuing on to the next column, we look at submission open for future submission. Those who had the future submission enabled can upload/validate invoices on the 25th for the following month. This is ideal for anticipating the submission date, cyclical invoices, or predetermined invoices. This way, invoices are not late. For the next column, we discussed the submission deadline for ICH. This is the closure day for ICH, and the same with the following column, but this is for ACH. For the next column, we look at billing output generation. This is the date when payable invoices are available. Weekly output files are generated and delivered on this date by the indicated time. In the next column, we look at supporting documents link deadline. Here, supporting documents are due around 24 hours before output generation. This gives the user time to see if the documents are linked correctly and make any alterations if needed. Continuing on to the next calendar, we look at the ICH processing calendar. Here, there's only a couple of points which I would want to bring your attention to. The first one being closure day. Here, this is the last day and time to submit invoices. And the next point of attention I would like to bring is call day and settlement day. This is the day when payments must be processed. Continuing on, we are going to be looking at the next report, which is Invoice Deletion Audit Trail Report. This report creates a audit trail of deleted invoices. It shows what was deleted, when, and by who. This is for audit purposes as it shows a history of invoice deletion, and it's a great tool to check internally. The next report that we'll be taking a look at is invoice reference data. This is a quick reference to a member's location. Key points in this report are location ID, if it's active or not, the tax and VAT number, the address, etc. An example of when to use this report is, let's say you are constructing an invoice that must go to a particular location for a member you are unfamiliar with. Running this report can ensure you bill the correct location ID, and it's fairly fast to run. As we continue, we're going to the next part of reports under Financial Controller. These are reconciliation reports for your payables and receivable sides. So the first report we discussed under the Financial Controller is the Interline Billing Summary. This report helps members to analyze incoming and outward billings for a clearance month/period, and also by settlement method indicator. Under Financial Controller, these reports can be generated for all through, though they can be generated individually per billing category in the Reports tab. So as I said, this is more of a generic view. In the Financial Controller, you can see all billing categories, but if you want the individual ones, you go in the individual billing category and you can generate it per each. Though, please note, if you do that, some of these do have a different name under each billing category, so please keep note of that. Continuing on to the next report in the Financial Controller, we take a look at the interline payables analysis. So like the previous report we just saw, this can be generated individually per billing category when you specify into that under the Reports tab. But here on the Financial Controller, you get a generic and broad overview. What this does, this report provides a breakdown of payables per billing category for each billing member per period. This is an excellent tool to see who bills you the most for each billing category. Continuing on, we take a look at suspended billings. Um, Here, this report shows all billings that are suspended due to clearinghouse suspensions that members can check at any time. This is a fantastic tool for insight and is available in PDF and Excel to download. The next report, which we will be discussing, is pending invoices in error. Running this report shows all invoices which are pending error. We strongly recommend generating this report before closure in case some invoices are in error, giving you ample time to make any necessary corrections or alterations if needed. Continuing on to the next report, we look at top 10 interline partner for payable and receivable. This report lists the top 10 interline partners of the carrier for both payable and receivable of the queried clearance month and history of the billed values for the past 11 months. This is a fantastic tool to see your biggest interline partners, and with this, you can analyze agreements with your largest partners and commercial agreement performers. The next report we'd like to discuss is Access ICH reports and ACH settlements reports. These reports can be used to reconcile against clearinghouse and clearinghouse-related SIS invoices. Note, accessing this will send the user to the clearinghouse reports in a different portal. As we move on to the next section of the reports, we look at reports that are specific to billing categories. To begin, we take a look at non-sampling rejection analysis. This report helps members to analyze the rejection ratios against prime billings for incoming and outgoing. This is an excellent tool to analyze rejections through different stages of billings and can be generated in a range of time to see rejections throughout time. The next report we'll take a look at is the correspondence status. This is a useful tool to take action on one or many correspondences. Information such as member code, to from, the status, the reference number, authority to bill, etc. What this report does, it provides a snapshot of all correspondences in a period of a given time, giving the user ability to take action if necessary. Reminding everyone of the previous webinar, we took a look at contacts and users. In the contacts, there is a particular contact we went over, which is the correspondence expiry contact. Now, those who are set up as this contact will receive automated monthly emails and alerts on correspondences, reminding them to take action on pending items, though it also includes the correspondence aging report. The correspondence aging report generates this screenshot, and it goes to that contact we just mentioned. Now, there's 4 points of this report, and this is what they are. The first point being a list of correspondences initiated for which authority has been received but billing memos have not been raised. The second point being a list of correspondences initiated that have been expired due to a non-reply from the other airline and no billing memo has been raised. Third point, all open correspondences initiated that have crossed the 7th stage along with the iteration and the value. And last point, all open correspondences received which are not initiated and which have crossed the 7th stage along with the iteration and value. As that concludes, we go to the next report, which we take a look at, which is RM BM CM summary. This report provides information such as total, source code, billing/billing entity, settlement method, etc. for all your rejection memos, billing memos, and credit memos. This is a useful tool to have for an overview of payable and or receivable of the, as mentioned, rejection memos, billing memos, and credit memos for a set period, and or with a particular billing partner. The next report we take a look at is the Supporting Attachments Mismatch Report. This report provides the airline with a list of invoices where attachments are expected as per the attachment indicator provided in the input file and not provided currently in the system, or there is no attachment required, but the attachments are linked. Now, what this does, it gives the user time to relink supporting documents before the deadline. Because of this, we recommend checking before expiry of supporting document linking deadline of the billing period to make any adjustments or corrections if necessary. Continuing on, now we look at the RM analysis comparison to the industry IATA RAM/ACH rule. Now, this RM report automatically generates monthly. This report gives airlines their current performance in comparison to the industry. This is part of the Rejection Memo Reduction Initiative. Now, depending on your clearinghouse that you participate in, whether it be ICH or ACH, the report will provide the appropriate industry benchmark and metrics. Here on the following slide, what we see is a graph that can be found on the report with one of many graphs and tables. What this does, it gives you both a visual and numerical standpoint of where you are in comparison to the industry. So on this graph, we see red is the industry benchmark, while blue would be yourself. Continuing on, we look at the charge code report. This report will be used to see line items for receivables and payables for miscellaneous invoices. Information such as billing member, invoice number, charge code, descriptions, and totals can be found here. As mentioned previously, this is a report that's clicked to download via your email. Now, the last report that we discuss here is the dispute status report. Like mentioned on the last slide, this generates offline via your email, and you'll be sent the link to download. And this report is used to keep track of disputes. And we will be discussing this exact report and other topics in our next webinar for disputes. So I'd like to thank everyone on my behalf, and I'll be passing it to my colleague Nina to close the webinar.
Thank you very much, Sam, for a great presentation. And now we will move forward to the last slide of this webinar, where we would like to remind you to check out our website. You can see it at iata.org/SIS. You have SIS for airlines or SIS for suppliers. Please note, as I said before, that we have added a new tab, which is the webinars tab, and this tab will be available on both pages, for airlines or suppliers. And additionally, I would like to remind you all that for any question or issue or any output file information or report information that you need from us, you can contact us via our customer service portal at iata.org/CS. So as a reminder, you will see here that all the webinars that we present to the industry will be in the webinars tab that I mentioned before. I would like to thank everybody for attending this webinar today, and we look forward to the next webinar and to your participation. Thank you and have a great day and afternoon and night wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Now we'll take any questions from the floor. If we do have any questions, we will now entertain those questions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's webinar. We do have a couple questions that we have received. The first question we have received is, are there any additional costs involved in creating output files?
So thank you, Vivek. Yes, I would like to reply to that question, saying that there is no additional cost for the output files. If enabled, you will receive them with no additional cost.
Okay, thank you, Nina. And the other question that we have is related to reports. For the member contact report, how would we communicate when all contacts return mail undeliverable? Sam?
So, unfortunately, these contacts are defined by the members themselves. So when there is no contacts, there will be no reply. So when a situation like this does occur, you may contact the SIS team so we can reach out to the other member and assist them to update their contact details in SIS.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, we had a few questions related to the copy of the presentation. Just a reminder, we will be posting the presentation and the recording on the SIS website, www.iata.org/SIS, and choose SIS for airlines or suppliers and the webinars tab. And there you will find a list of all the pre-recorded webinars that we have done over the past few months and years. We will continue to post the slides and the recordings on that page, as well as send out the email to the participants on today's webinar. So with that, we will end today's webinar. Thank you all once again for joining. Please look forward to the rest of this SIS webinar series for this year, and stay safe, stay well wherever you may be. Thank you. Bye-bye.